Hey everyone, welcome back to Todos Santos. This is episode number 18. Today we're moving back into the downtown core area, and we're filling in some gaps, putting down some buildings and details, and we'll be starting off with this pedestrian promenade, which we placed a few episodes ago. And these buildings that I place here, I mostly put there as kind of fillers because they fit. They're a little too short and not quite detailed enough, and they just don't really have the right feel for like a high-density financial district kind of area. So the buildings are really temporary, but all these details we're putting down are here to stay. And I wanted this pedestrian promenade to basically act as just a nicer, safer sidewalk. So it's a little wider, and people do prefer the pedestrian roads over the sidewalk, so they do walk on it and basically use it as a sidewalk, which is nice. And this is primarily based off, we're continuing to go with the theme of basing this off the Golden Mile in San Juan. Here you can see the sort of style I'm going for. This is based off the Luis Munoz Rivera Avenue that runs right through the middle there. And really this whole area, I think I mentioned this before, is based off of the Golden Mile. Here you can see how the metro line runs right over near behind the buildings that are on the main road. I'm trying to go with fewer parking lots, although there are still some surface parking lots, as you'll see as we continue to build this. And I'm going for a little bit more of a landscaped feel with this brick or tile pedestrian road, these fences, and of course all these curbs and trees and everything. But I was definitely inspired by this whole sort of scene here. And here I'm micro adjusting these fences to try to get the whatever they're called, the parts that stick up, to line up. That's always an eternal struggle in detailing, and pretty much what you see is what you get here with this road. It's just this one little section of pedestrian promenade. The rest of it is just a normal sidewalk. I do though mirror it on the other side of the road. That's off camera, basically doing the same thing on the other side. So I guess this is probably like the focus area that they would spend most of their money on. Now I wanted to add a few public kind of little, not really parks, but just little rest areas, I suppose. So we have this little place with this little hedged-in place behind that parking lot, and some public tables, I guess, just to hang out on. And now I didn't want to drag a road all the way through here, so just as kind of like an extension of this pedestrian road here, which is now on the other side of the street that we were working on before, I decided to put this kind of like vendor stall area. But first, of course, we have to place some parking lots, which are great to fit in underneath elevated rail because it doesn't really, you don't have to worry about fitting a building in there. You just take up a couple parking spots with the pillars. And that's just kind of a nice place to squeeze in parking lots. But I don't want to focus too much on that, so we're going to move back to this little vendor area. And I'm just putting down various things. I guess there would be like little food trucks, in addition to maybe a little bit of like a micro farmer's market or something like that to serve tourists and people who work or live downtown. And I'm using this great concrete tile decal just to break up the texture a little bit. And now might be a good time to talk about the mods I'm using. So I've had a few people mentioning various mods that have come out, like the node controller, the intersection marking tool, and I have since, at this point, this is new footage, like recorded in 2021, whereas the last like 4 or 5 episodes were recorded in like 2020 or 2019 maybe even. But so what you're seeing now and everything from now on is new. I have not at this point in this video downloaded the node controller or network marking tool, but those will show up, I promise, in future episodes, and they are as amazing as everybody says they are. So they have those to look forward to, and plenty of shenanigans with that. And I've also been giving into my asset subscription addiction, so I have a lot more buildings that we're going to be playing with in the upcoming episodes. We're doing something really cool a few episodes from now, so I'm excited for that. We're kind of going back and really focusing on some more Caribbean-type details, which is going to be fun. But for now, we're doing this really cool sunken, now we're moving away from it, but we did that cool sunken plaza sort of thing that's attached to that building. I like that building a lot. And we're throwing it down some tactile paving decals so that sight impaired people can cross safely. And I just like to put those down in high focus areas like this, where they'd be investing the most money into pedestrian infrastructure. And that kind of goes along with all the various newer public transportation measures that they've been taking here, and just trying to make things a little friendlier for pedestrians, tourists, and locals alike. So I'm going to let you watch me put down some of those details, fill in a few gaps, put down a couple buildings, and I will see you on the other side of the segment. Welcome back. We're getting a lot of traffic to the old town, as you can see here. That's just something I noticed while I was building, so I thought I'd show that to you. And now we're going to focus in on this little rectangular sort of area, and we're going to make this into a park, which sort of serves both as a park, like a place to go and spend some time, but also just a little bit of a green space that you could walk through on your commute or whatever. And I wanted to start adding more parks like this throughout the city, even in these dense urban type areas, because one thing I've noticed flying around on Google Maps is that in San Juan there are a lot of green spaces like this, so that's just something I wanted to start including more of, and we definitely get some more of it in various places. And I can't seem to help myself from going back to this theme of using these red brick ploppable surfaces along with some hedges to make a nice park. And then of course we do the classic trick of using these drain decals as kind of decorative edges. And the square was a little off, so it kind of offset where the decals went, and it ends up looking sort of like it's a square plopped down in the middle of this kind of cross here. And then we use these expansion joint decals to make this walkway look like it's pre-made concrete slabs, I guess. And as always, that's just another way to break up the pavement texture, which gets pretty old after a while, especially when you're making more urban areas like this. And I didn't want people to just like walk straight through this area, so I made kind of like a pedestrian roundabout in the middle, because in a second we're going to put down a planter in the middle and use this very nice jacaranda tree asset, which I've been using in several places throughout the city. I don't know how accurate that is, like to the ecosystems of Puerto Rico, but I think it has that sort of look to some certain trees that you see there. Like here, I'm thinking it's sort of like, I guess they're called flame trees or flamboyant trees that are bright red and really nice looking. Obviously it's not the right color, but it just has that sort of vibe, I guess. So I've been using those kind of in focus areas like this. They're not all over, obviously they don't just pop up in the middle of a forest or whatever, but just to accent certain areas. And there are other trees I've been using, like an acacia and a myrtle, just to kind of evoke that style of tree, I guess. Just because there aren't too many, outside of palm trees, of course, assets on the workshop that fit that theme. This ends up being a pretty heavily landscaped park with these fences and hedges blocking off this green area here. So I decided to just fill it in with some nice looking flowers and bushes here, just so like when you're in the park, walking through the park, it feels almost like you're in the woods a little bit, with these palm trees here giving some shade. And then we use these park people generator benches, which I like to use for two reasons. First, because they obviously draw people to actually sit there, which is nice. And additionally, I'm actually more worried at this point about hitting the prop limit in this city than the building limit. So I try to use building versions of things, or just non-prop versions of things really, whenever I can. Though here I do use a few prop versions of the bench, just so that not every bench is always filled up with Sims. And so for alternatives to props, I've been using things like network versions of things, which are great, and also the new intersection marking tool that I mentioned is amazing in many respects, but especially in the fact that it saves on lots of decals. And that just means that we'll be able to keep building this city in more detail for longer, which is great. And now, as I'm sure you've noticed, we're selecting some new buildings from a palette that I put together. These are new ones that I hadn't used yet. So the loading screen mod has a function where you can get an output log and it'll tell you which assets you have and haven't used. So I just did that and got a list of the ones that I had downloaded but hadn't placed in the city yet. And I looked at all of them on the workshop. I got rid of some that I didn't think I'd use, and then I just put the rest of them out here on a road over to the side so that I could kind of go back and forth and see where different things fit. So that's what we're doing now. And for the most part, we're just kind of laying these down for detailing either in future episodes or off screen, a little mixture of both. And the buildings I have lined up there are not totally up to date in terms of what I have in my collection, because there have been a lot of great building assets released recently that I have downloaded and been using. For example, there are some great ones that are styled after some Cuban buildings and some Brazilian ones as well. So while they're not like exactly Puerto Rican, they definitely fit into that general style of architecture. So I've been having a lot of fun with those, and of course you'll see all that in future episodes. But as far as where I'm placing these buildings, it seemed to me like the skyline was a little bit too clustered, and I wanted it to be a little bit more spread out in terms of how far, these really tall buildings range from the main core of the downtown. So I just wanted to add some more off to the sides. And this is all going to come together nicely in future episodes. We're going to do some building similar to this next episode. But after that, we're going to take a little bit of a detour for about 4 episodes, I think. And then we're going to come back into the downtown and finish up most of it, except for the little part that borders next to where we're going to build the port, because I wanted to leave that for when we actually build the port. But we're going to get the rest, like the northern side of downtown, is going to be completely filled in and detailed. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm really happy with how this city is going. It's definitely the biggest detailed city that I've ever built in this game. Of course, there's my other series, Alpenglow, which is much bigger, but also not at all detailed. And I built that really quickly, whereas this one is going to be a little bit of a slow burn project, but I think it's going to be fun. And now you can see those churches. I was just kind of placing those over to the side. Those were some nice assets that we're going to put a little closer to the old town, probably quite far into the future compared to this episode. Okay, so here in a second, we're going to be using what might be my new favorite mod, that crosswalk there that just disappeared. And that's something I've been waiting for since I downloaded my first mod like 4 years ago. And there's just a mod you can get that when you disable a crosswalk with Traffic Manager, it eliminates the visual zebra crossing. And so as far as I'm concerned, that's the best mod that exists and will ever exist. So I'm going to keep using that pretty much everywhere. Anyway, for the last portion of the episode, we're detailing this hotel asset, which is really nice, and I just thought it deserved a little bit of TLC to make sure it's integrated nicely into the environment. So we're doing a sky bridge here and putting in some landscaping and some road signs, of course. It wouldn't be an episode without some road signs. So I'm going to let you watch me do that, and I'll be back in just a minute to see the episode out. Enjoy. And I actually lied before. We're going to finish off this episode with a little bit of road work. And this is kind of the end of the main road that runs through the financial district. And I mentioned that a couple episodes ago. And it's where it transitions from like the nice new dark pavement into the slightly lighter, older, more damaged pavement. And I felt that it looked a little plain, so I wanted to just add some details, make it look a little bit more realistic. And even though it's not as nice or as landscaped as the rest of the avenue, it still has some more attention paid to it than just your average road. And now here you can see I'm trying to use this network here to bridge the gap there with the stripes in the middle. And that's something that we're going to come back and adjust once I get the intersection marking tool, which at the point of this recording I did not have yet. And now I'm using it everywhere, and it's such a great mod. But we'll see that in detail in future episodes. For now, I'm just going to be wasting all these decals. Don't get too angry at me. They're all going to be deleted and replaced with that amazing mod. Though it's not like it can do everything. Like, as far as I know, it can't actually edit segments. So like all these stripes that are going through the actual like segments of the road, that mod couldn't do it. But all the stuff at the intersection and bridging segments and stuff like that, it does perfectly fine, and it's a lot of fun. So for the next few episodes, we're still going to be using these sad little decals for detailing. But nonetheless, I thought I'd show you kind of what I was thinking. And I don't actually record any of like replacing these things with that mod, but we do of course actually use it in future builds. So I'll start praising the mod again when we actually start using it in the series. And now we've arrived at the end of the episode, so I want to say thank you so much for watching this episode of Todos Santos, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. Adios.